Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second season of Ask the Expert, the educational series by Youth America Grand Prix. In our very first episode, we'll deal with something that every dancer, whether they admit it or not, wants to know about it, and that is the fame game. How to get famous, how to get well known, and how to put yourself out there in the public sphere. And our expert today is none other than Jennifer Stahl. She's the editor-in-chief of Dance Magazine, and we're very grateful that Jennifer is here with us today. Hi.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming over and letting us know what everybody wants to know about. And before we even start diving into what PR is and how the magazine works, what other outlets there are out there, just let's talk a little bit, like just break it down. PR 101. What is public relations and what do you eat it with?
Well, I guess a lot of it is just sharing your story as a dancer with the world, however that happens. And today there's, of course, there's magazines, newspapers, a lot of online sites, some independent blogs, as well as more official online publications. And then there's also social media where you can basically be your own PR agent.
Right. So public relations is basically letting the outlets, magazines, newspapers, and all other electronic and other publications, letting people know your story about yourself, right?
Exactly.
So that is kind of the first step. So this is how you, the editor of the most important dance magazine in the United States, and some say in the world, this is how, that's quite a responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is, this is how you get to find out what to put in the magazine. So let's start with this. Where do you get your story ideas? How do you decide what goes into the magazine? How far in advance this gets planned, and so forth?
That's a lot of questions. I'll start with your first one, where we get story ideas. We have a small staff of about 6 editors, and we go to performances every night. We're online scouring social media, YouTube, trying to see as much video, see as many dance performances as we can to find the talent, to find the dancers that people want to know about. We also have writers throughout the States and throughout the world who are sending us ideas of, hey, I saw this dancer, she's amazing, you need to cover her. And so that's kind of where we're getting a lot of ideas. First, we're looking, of course, for talent, and that's not always technique. It's the dancer who catches our heart for whatever reason, has something special to share on stage or on the screen. Those are the ones we fall in love with, and we have to share this dancer's story. We get really excited about, but we also get into when there's a dancer with some kind of hook, whether it's she overcame a debilitating illness or she started her own charity for kids in a homeless shelter in her local town. Those stories also catch our eye and are something that we want to share.
So in essence, you have your own 6 editors who are constantly scouting for story ideas and talent and people to feature. Mm-hmm. Then you have this army of freelance writers who are all over the world. How many freelance writers, by the way, do you have?
We don't really limit it.
In general.
I would say in general we work with about 20 to 30 regularly, both in print and online.
So you basically have this kind of like 30 plus people always looking at the world of dance and trying to seek out that special story, something to cover, right?
Right, exactly.
So you're always on the lookout. So this is good. First of all, the first thing for everybody to know is that, there are people looking out there for stories about people like you. So that's heartening already.
Yeah, we have to fill the magazine with something. We have to put something up online. We want the great story.
We want great stories. So how do you come as a dancer? Say I'm a young dancer or a dancer who's just started out in a company and I'm dying to be in Dance Magazine. How do I come on your radar? How do I make sure you're aware of me and my story?
If you're working for a company, the best way to go about it was to have the company's press person reach out to us. We work with a lot of companies and have relationships with those people, and so we want to make sure everything we do is on the up and up with them. They know what we're doing. They know how to get us all the photos, all the information that we're going to need in order to do something. But you can also just email me.
Really?
My email is in the magazine. It's online.
What is your email?
jstahl, STAHL, @dancemedia.com. I'm so super happy to get emails from anyone. I might not be able to respond to them all, but I love looking. I will definitely look at them. I love when they have photos that I can see, video so I can see what your dancing is like. And what you have to say.
So you heard it here first, Jenny Stahl's email, but you obviously don't want to be spammed, by email from all the dancers who want to be in the magazine, right? So what would your advice be to those? Well, okay, first of all, let's break it down. You said that go through your company's PR person, but often those PR people are preoccupied with the stars or with the latest production, and if you're a person in the corps de ballet, but you have a great story, they may not necessarily pay attention to you. So that might be an example of them saying, let me email Jenny first, And so when they do, what would your advice be? How do they make themselves stand out, and how do they make their story worth looking at by you or your colleagues?
That's a great question. I actually, just recently, I got an email from a gentleman who actually, I already knew of his name as a dancer, and so it caught my eye when I saw it. I got an email from him, but he pitched a story that was very personal to him, but it was actually about how, of all things, competitions are what helped him create his career. Not just trying to plug YGP, but it was a great idea, and he gave me very specifics of exactly why, for him, this was something that launched his career. He gave me personal anecdotes, details plus photos we could use, something like that. I basically wrote him back and was like, this sounds great. I would love to do it down the line when we do our next competition issue. I'll be in touch. So something like that is great when you have specifics you can share, something unique. We are always looking for a hook, a story to tell. Not just, hey, I'm a great dancer, here's my great, beautiful photo. That's lovely and amazing, but for us it's easiest when we can share with our readers, hey, here's this heartwarming story that you might inspire you, or here's this great advice from someone who's been in the trenches and knows the challenges, and here's how they did it.
So specifically, give me a couple of examples of those hooks that hooked you in and resulted in stories in the magazine.
Yeah, recently we got a pitch from a woman who had started her own kind of dance camp for kids in I forget where, somewhere in Africa. These kids who were on the street and didn't have much to do. And she said, hey, let me teach you some dance. And it was a very cool story, and we got video of it. And so we went ahead and created a story about that, which was a great one. Another example would be, I'm trying to think, there was a woman who overcame really debilitating scoliosis, and she talked about how that kind of fueled her as a dancer and how she overcame it and physically developed her body so that she could still dance.
So something that inspires the audience or helps them with the problems they're facing, or just specific, something very unusual perhaps, right?
Exactly.
What happens next? Say I'm a dancer and I have a great story and I have a great video maybe to come with it, to go along with it. What happens next? You read that email, you're interested. What happens next?
I might pass it to our other editors, say, hey, what do you think we can do with this? Does it fit on our website? Does it fit in this section of the magazine? And then if it's online, it's a pretty quick process. And if we all like it, we either assign it to a freelance writer or one of us writes it up, and it could go up as soon as later that day or the next day. If it's for prints, it's a very long process. We start planning about 4 or 5 months ahead of time. So we'll figure out, okay, this is a great fit for our working out with column. This is a dancer who has her personal training certificate and she loves boxing on the side, and that's helped her go from core to ballet dancer to principal dancer. So we'll say, okay, this is a great fit for our working out with column. I'll put it on our lineup for probably about 5 months in advance. We'll assign a freelance writer. We'll get photos of her boxing, maybe send our videographer to go out and capture that footage as well. And then 5 months down the line, it'll go through, once I get the manuscript in from the writer, it'll go through editing, fact-checking, copy editing to make sure everything looks good. It'll be laid out onto the page with the photos, and then we'll finally come out in the magazine.
So 5 months in advance. That's
about, yeah.
That's a long lead time. So, but that's something that, dancers may not know. So they think, oh, great, let me do this for next month's issue, and next month's issue is already, printed.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
So, and you mentioned something very interesting. You said that there is a paper and online version of the magazine. So,
Correct.
So sometimes if you really aim to be in a paper version of the magazine that comes out every month, then you have to work at least 5 months out. But for the online version, it can happen in a day.
Now, it can if we have the time. It doesn't always,
but it can. And in terms of readership, how many people read the paper version of the magazine versus the electronic version?
Our online traffic is much bigger than our print subscription. I forget exact numbers. We have about over 1 million people who see our website every month. For print, I think the circulation is about 400,000.
So in some ways, because everybody's clamoring to be in a paper issue, but if you're online, you're seen by more people.
Yep.
So that's another important bit of information for dancers to know. It's not like a letdown if you're in the electronic version. In fact, it's more people will see it.
And it's not for us like, oh, we don't like this dancer as much as this dancer, so we'll put them in online and them in print. It's not that at all. It's just what's the best fit for us. People respond to things online differently than they do in print, and so sometimes if it's a story of something that's happening next week, yeah, we're going to do it online because we can cover that right away. But if it's a story that maybe someone is writing a personal essay about their own, let me think of an example that's done well recently. This isn't a great example, but one dancer wrote a very honest story about her depression, and something like that does really well online that people like to read there and share, whereas in print, maybe it feels a little flat. So.
Right. So it's not about how good or bad you are. It's really about what fits best.
Exactly.
That's really good. Sort of again a good thing for people to know. So it's not a judgment of value. It's a judgment of what fits where best. You also mentioned that you have a certain issue, at a certain month. So do you know the topic for every issue in advance for the entire year?
Yep. Right now it's September, and we're planning all of our 2019 issues. What topic is going to be in which issue?
So each issue is dedicated to a particular topic.
Right.
Is there any way for regular dancers to know what these topics are?
Yeah, if you go to our media, you look for our media kit online, that lists it. We have a summer study issue, an auditions issue, competition and conventions issue, and on and on.
So like a savvy, a PR savvy dancer who wants to pitch you a story might actually do well by going to dancemedia.com?
Dancemagazine.com.
Dancemagazine.com and looking for a media kit, which is a kit that you sort of put out about what the publication is planning. And in that media kit, one of the things that they'll find there is a schedule of what issues are being planned for which month.
Exactly, yeah.
And okay, so this is great. This is, so I'm a dancer, I have a story, I know I can email you, or I know somebody who's a writer, I can email them as well. I can describe my story. I know that there has to be a hook and it has to be something that's interesting for others. What other things should I be aware of? Like photos, maybe videos, you said?
Yeah, if it's for print, we're going to need very high quality photos that are going to hold up once we print them. For online, we also like photos, but they don't need to be as high quality. They can just be a quick iPhone shot, something that makes you look good. And for online, we love videos. The more videos, the better.
Okay. Good advice. If I have like great videos of me doing 25 pirouettes,
Yep.
I should send them to you.
Yep, that'll be something that catches everyone's eye. So we love that.
Sounds good. And so let's talk, okay, so this is Dance Magazine. Let's just expand a little bit beyond that, because if we're talking about the fame game, one of the most prestigious publications is, of course, Dance Magazine, but there are others, and there are also resources online. So what advice could you give to dancers who are trying to be well-known out there? What should they do? What should they not do? What would you recommend?
In terms of
getting yourself out there, getting your name out there, should they send out press releases to every dance publication they can find? Should they refrain from doing that, if that's not a good thing for their image? What would you advise?
I don't think there's anything wrong with sending out a press release or a personal email to contacts you can find who write for those websites, who are the editors of those publications. There's no harm in it. If you send out one every day, you're probably going to annoy some people. So, there is a balance. But if you send out one, hey, this is my story. I think it's really cool. Here's why. Here's what I can offer you. Here's why your readers should be interested. Get very familiar with the either magazine or newspaper or site you're writing to and pitching yourself to. Figure out the kinds of things they cover and think about who they're writing for, and that will help you angle your pitch in a way that will most likely be more successful. If it's, for example, our sister publication, Point, is all about ballet, mainly for pre-professional students. And if you love hip-hop, they're probably not going to cover you. So look for Dance Spirit. They love that. So think about that strategically. Send a message and then follow up once, I would say. Maybe twice, but not every day for the next month.
So how often would you say is too often? What would be the optimal sort of frequency with which you personally like to be contacted, or just anybody out there?
It's a tricky balance. I would say if I hear if I haven't responded to you and you've sent me 3 emails in the past month, I probably am not gonna respond. So I would say definitely follow up a week after you send your first email, because sometimes things fall through the cracks. But other than that, you might want to wait until you have something else to share.
Right, so basically send out an email, follow up approximately a week or 2 later, and and maybe follow up again at some point, but after 3 emails, if you have not heard back, chances are you shouldn't continue to keep sending emails, because you don't want to you definitely don't want to be on the list of people who annoy them, right? Whose emails get deleted before they're read. Does that happen?
Right, yeah, well, yeah, you want to make sure that each time, there are some people who email us so often, we kind of just see it's like, oh yeah, that person again. It's not something we're interested, because we've seen so many times. But if you wait until you have a new event that you're working on, an exciting new ballet, and you have the big role, and it's a huge newsworthy opportunity because of XYZ, then yeah, wait until then, and then that will catch our eye.
So if I'm a dancer in a company and I'm trying to get you to write about me, should I let my PR person, the public relations manager at your company, know that I'm contacting you at Dance Magazine, or no? Or will you do that?
You should definitely check with them, and it might be in your contract that you have to check with them. So you should make sure you're all on the up and up there. Yeah, press managers are not fans of that. But we will most likely, depending on if you're doing an event outside of your company, we'll work with you directly. But if we're covering you as a dancer in San Francisco Ballet, we're going to be in touch with the San Francisco Ballet press reps, no matter, even if you reach out to us initially. We're going to loop them in to make sure they're okay with it and to make sure they can get us everything we need.
Now, you mentioned press releases or emails. Is one more preferable than the other?
As long as you give us all the information. I personally don't have a preference. Other writers, editors might, but.
Right, and just for those who don't know, a press release is when it's a very specifically formatted page or several pages where you put the date, the place where something is happening. In the first paragraph, you put all the summary of your information, and then you unpack the information below. So it's a very specific standard, but you don't, if we understand you correctly, you don't have to follow that format, which used to be mandatory, not anymore.
No, I don't think so. If you tell me your story and you hook me with your story, that's going to get me interested. And
should dancers send photos with their story, or say that we have photos upon request? What do you prefer?
Either. If you have some photos, I'd love to see them, or if you have a link to where they live somewhere online, whether it's on Instagram or a Google Drive, that's helpful too. So
photos and videos definitely helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Now, sometimes we're not, a dancer is not with a company. Sometimes it's an overly excited parent who wants to email you about their child. Do you make a difference between, this is a PR person sending, some parents actually go as far as hiring a press representative for their child learning how to dance, and that we've seen that happen. And because they think that unless it's coming from a press representative, from an official, from a professional, you wouldn't look at an email. Is that so? Do you treat emails from parents, dancers, or PR agents the same?
That's a great question. I do have to admit that we will take an email from a press representative more seriously. We can see it's someone professional, and we know that when we're working with someone who is a PR rep, they'll know how to get us all the things that we need. Whereas if it's a parent, they might not know about how to get us the right size photos, how to set up a few, all of the little details. And also, every mother thinks their child is amazing, so it's hard to distinguish.
Right.
But if it's really an amazing talent, an amazing story, it doesn't matter where it's coming from.
Now, let's go back a little bit to print versus online. Now, social media is all the rage right now. And so do you feel like, are there any tips that you would have for dancers in terms of how to handle themselves on social media, Instagram or Facebook or Twitter? What tips might you have for dancers trying to get noticed on those channels?
Yeah, we are constantly scrolling through all kinds of social media. I would say, honestly, the thing that captures us the most is when we can find on there something intriguing about a dancer that has nothing to do with dance. Some weird hobby that they have, their obsession with cooking, or their dog that they love and like to put in point shoes or something. Something fun. I would say that some dancers, you look on there and all you see are selfies of themselves, or all you see are them in the studio, and it's okay, well, they're a great dancer, but that doesn't tell me anything that I can work with, really. But if we can find out something personal about them through social media in a personal and an appropriate way, that's super helpful for us, and we might act on that.
And by personal, you mean letting you, editors looking for story ideas, something about their person that makes them stand out, either an interesting hobby or something that will let you know more about this person that you're maybe going to consider for publication based on what they put out on social media.
Exactly. We love showcasing dancers as full, well-rounded, 360-degree people. So if there's something outside of dance that you love to do, that's usually what we're looking on social media for.
Now, just in general, it seems like, I think there was a poll it's repeated in recent years, but they used to kind of ask people, what is your dream? And most people say in 20th century would say, we want to be happy, we want to be rich, we want to be traveling, I want to fulfill myself. They did a recent poll among young people, millennials, and an overwhelming majority of people said they want to be famous. That's the one thing they want to do. It's all about being famous. What do you think about this fame culture that we're living in right now?
I don't know. It's weird to me. It's so funny. I don't think of what we do as making people famous. But that's probably a part of our job. We can't think of it that way. We just have to think of what do readers want to see, what's going to be helpful for them. So I never think of like, oh, I'm going to cover this person and they're going to be famous.
They do get famous, They do.
They do. I can't deny that, but that's just not part of our thought process.
So you don't think about because even Michaela de Prince, one of our Youth America Grand Prix famous alumni, she in one of the interviews actually said that the reason she decided, the point when she knew she wanted to be a ballerina is she was looking at a dance magazine. She saw a dance magazine, Sarah Lamb was on the cover. And so she turned to her mom and said, Mom, I want to be on the cover of Dance Magazine. And that's how she decided to become a dancer. She said that in her interview. So it does inspire people. And the fame game, as it were, does play a role in dance art. Because if you dance in your living room and nobody sees it, it's one thing. If you want to be a dancer on stage, that's another thing. And in that sense, the more people know about you, the better. So what would you say to all those dancers out there who are dreaming to be famous? What would you say to them?
I guess just ask yourself why you want to be famous. Is it to get ahead in your career? Is it to have more opportunities? I don't know. It seems to me if fame by itself is your end goal, that's going to be pretty unfulfilling. But there's so much more to dance and to ballet that it can give you other than just being a big name. Or, I don't know, go play basketball because those people are way more famous than dancers.
Right. So dance you don't choose for the fame, right? Because you choose it for the art. It's true. Well, I'm going to ask you to do something unusual because we've been just talking and the cameras are here taping ourselves. I'm going to ask you to do something else. So this camera right here, that camera is your teenage self. So from a life well and interestingly lived, what do you now know that you wish your teenage self knew at that age? And so if you could please address your teenage self right there.
Well, teenage Jenny, I think I would tell you that there's a lot more to dance than ballet. Ballet is amazing and beautiful, but there's so much more you can do with dance. And when you see a William Forsythe duet that may look a little weird to you, you're gonna love it in a few years. Just keep your mind open.
Our guest today was Jennifer Stahl, Editor-in-Chief of Dance Magazine. I'm Sergey Gordeev, and we'll see you again on Ask the Expert.